Good evening and welcome to Teachings with Jhampa from Mexico, teaching on deity yoga and tantra, and really giving a wonderful perspective the last time about what we would need, all the steps, explanations, making it really understandable with wonderful examples, also from Lama's life, Lama Yeshe, and Jhampa Shannon will be back in April with one evening on Mahamudra. So keep an eye for the event in our calendar. And before my internet connection is unstable. Before we get started, our Jhampa will be reading from the refuge prayer, and then I would like to offer a mandala.
I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme. Actually, first, sorry, start all over. Motivation. And motivation isn't just reading the prayers. Motivation is your feelings. So first, for example, for this evening, first, bring to mind someone that you love, whether it's a family member, a friend, or even it's just your pet dog or cat. But have a feeling of love in your heart. And how you do that is, you bring them to mind, or you could say you visualize them, but you bring them to mind, and then the feeling arises because that person has that quality. And then all you have to say is that I'm attending the class tonight for them. And although that's not the universal bodhicitta, it's in the direction of that. So with that thought in mind, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my generosity, merits of teaching, and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all transcendental beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my merits of teaching. May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of teaching. May I become a Buddha to benefit all transcendental beings.
Sashi perki Gyuksheng meto Trahamri Rabten Nihidek Yan Padi Sange Shindu Nekte Uwagi Roku Nam Daksheng La Cherpak Shok Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamya Chayami. Thank you, and the word is yours, Jhampa.
Okay, so thank you very much, and welcome all of you in Europe. This is quite incredible. Since COVID, the sort of Dharma availability became, humongous. Okay, anyway, and then for myself, I might just like to say that, my ability to teach is because I had a lot of teachers over many years. In fact, I've now been a Buddhist for 52 years. I was ordained 52 years ago. I was a monk for 14 years. And then I returned to Canada, and I basically always lived in Dharma centers and taught as needs be. So we're into the two higher levels of Tantra, Yoga and Anuttara Yoga. But I want to bring up again some of the fundamentals that I mentioned earlier. First off is that your graduated path, it basically, you manifest it or you give it imagery in Tantra. So if you don't have the realization of the graduated path, at least some understanding, appreciation, feeling about it, then it still works, Tantra still works, but the thing is, obviously, it's not as full as it could be. And when I talk about realizations of graduated path, I'm talking about a concluding realization. I mentioned earlier, for example, how would you feel if you won a lottery ticket for, 3 million euros? You'd feel very excited about that. The night before you go and get the money, you're looking at all the potentials that you could do, give money to your family and friends or something like that, make a big donation to the Dharma Center, whatever. So if you took that, and all you're really talking about is the potentiality, and then apply that to the precious human rebirth and get excited about your life. That's the realization of precious human rebirth. I mean, yes, there's techniques to gain you to that, But the bottom line is that you want to feel excited about your life. Or if we move to the impermanence, we have the 9 rounds of death meditation, and then the 3 conclusions that can come from that and such. There's lots of, we're Galupa, so we have lots of details and breakdowns for our practices. But the bottom line is that you can just say, okay, with my possessions, my friends or relationships, and with my body, at the end of this life, all I'm left with is what I did with them, like the karma I accumulated with them. And why I say that is because we're in the Bodhisattva vehicle. So chances are we will get another rebirth, maybe many, but the bottom line is we will take other rebirths. And so therefore, what do we want to do for that future rebirth? Now, I have a really a simple example. And I mean, all of us have heard, work for the future rebirth. Okay. And, I've not, had that for years. But have you ever thought about it? All of us, I mean, I would say 90% of us do not remember our past life. Absolutely. I don't remember who I was, what my name was, what country I lived in, whether I was a man or a woman. I don't remember any of that. But what I do have is I have the effect of the karma that was accumulated in that rebirth. So if you think about the next rebirth, they're not going to know you. They're not going to know who you are or anything, basically, but they're going to be affected by the type of karma you created. For example, I mean, were you generous and shared? Or did you try to be helpful and it's not what I'm getting from a relationship, but what I'm offering? Or what did you do with your body? I mean, lots of vanity and such. Or did you actually do things good with your body? I mean, and that still includes taking care of yourself and, dressing well and smelling nice and whatever else, but you don't do it for vanity. You do it to be an attractive Dharma practitioner. But the point is that next person will not know you. So what I think of is that these are Christmas presents, or well, that's Christian, of course, but why not? Birthday presents, okay. But the point is that if I do a good job in this rebirth, I'm sending presents to that next rebirth. And that person will benefit from maybe being more studious in school, having a greater sense of equanimity about themselves, or being in touch with themselves, or just interest to meditate. Or be like to see a Buddha statue and to feel inspired by it. And so that's a really nice way to look at it, because it's not like me in the next rebirth, but it's somebody who could be benefited by me. So may I send them some really nice presents to them, help them have a good rebirth and do better in their relationships, have a sense of prosperity and such. So that's a very interesting thing. And there's actually quite a bit of now research going on about actually, kids that remember their past rebirths. There is a Canadian psychologist who's now died, but he reviewed 2,000 children that said they could remember a rebirth, and of those, 200 of them were they statistically, yes, they got the previous rebirth. They got all the details. They checked up, and sure enough, it was true. But the problem, and this is interesting, is they all died with trauma. None of those kids died nicely. They all died in a trauma. And that's why they remember their past rebirth. So it's interesting that we don't remember our past rebirth is really good, because if we did, we were traumatized. And that's from the research. So it's interesting. Anyway, still, but it comes back to that, I'd say almost none of us are going to remember our past rebirth. Maybe we have some inclinations because we're Buddhist, but we really don't have any detail. And so the same person, the next one in line, won't have any detail about us, but they can be benefited by how we act in this rebirth. And that's really, utilizing the fact that my possessions are impermanent, my relationships are impermanent, my body will be impermanent. But in regards to all of those, what karma am I accumulating? So at the end of my life, I'm only going to be left with the karma that I accumulated, nothing more. And that's what I'm going to send to the next rebirth. So again, what I'm trying to talk about is a graduated path, but to have, concluding realizations that to some way fit you and move into your life. Then, for example, refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Buddha is the inspiration. Dharma is the actual thing that gives us protection, and then the Sangha is our friends. So, now, when you, for example, prostrations, no, we don't do prostrations online, But have you ever considered that, for example, let's say if you walked in your clothes closet, or if you looked in your jewelry box or something like that, and you look at it and you think, oh, I look nice when I wear that, you know, I feel good, you know, or I mean, there's all sorts of things. I mean, it might be that you have a very nice watch, you know, a Rolex watch, or maybe a really nice Swiss watch. And then everybody go, oh, they must be rich, you know, or maybe you drive a BMW or a Mercedes or something, you know, I mean, a higher end one, you know. Anyway, my point being is that we have these phenomena, and if you look at them and say, I feel good in that, or, you know, I'm living in a nice neighborhood, what you're sort of doing is doing a prostration to that object. You're venerating that object because it makes you feel that you're somebody a little more special, a little bit more rich, or a little bit more Dharma, maybe because you wear your Dharma paraphernalia or something like that. So the thing is, all of those prostrations are not beneficial, but we do them. I mean, just think of some of the clothing that you have. I mean, this particular shirt I have, you can't maybe see it, but it's a very nice, Mexican sort of type of weave. It's quite famous and such. So, oh, you know, so when I look at it, actually, even today, I thought, oh, I'm gonna wear this shirt today, you know. But the point is that those are not very beneficial prostrations, you know, venerating the object. So when we see a Buddha statue, I mean, really appreciate the quality of that Buddha statue. You know, I mean, not the quality of the statue. I mean, the being that was that. So I think I talked about it last week about all the rebirths of Buddha Shakyamuni and all the different ways that he worked with the situation he was born into, and then the bodhicitta that he applied to that improved him in that rebirth to go to the next rebirth, to go to the next rebirth. So when you look at a Buddha statue, you're really looking at this incredible continuity of bodhicitta development. And that's really worthwhile to make a prostration to. And what you're prostrating to is that it's the bodhicitta and it's the wisdom. You know, I often think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and for me, like, he's the embodiment of this incredibly adaptable, enlightened activity, you know, wisdom and compassion and stuff. And so all my feelings go to that which is the deep part of the Dalai Lama. So in that way, then making a prostrations with those recognitions really become, you know, very beneficial for you, both this and in a future rebirth. So it's not like just 3 prostrations because you're the Buddha. Why? Like, what's the quality? Okay, then of course karma. Be mindful of our karma and such, and then we move over to the delusions and such. And I think I mentioned that the words we often use is ignorance, but really, strictly speaking, in the Tibetan language, that's not the correct word. It's either rikpa or marikpa, which is I understand or I don't understand. And that's really important. Again, I've talked before, of course, that the psychological impact of the words we use in our Dharma practice. So we're not renouncing, because that's looking backwards. We're spiritually determined. That's looking forward. And that's actually the better translation of nejum, to arise from, to move forward and such. So again, you have to think about the psychological impact. So the same thing, it's not like I'm ignorant. That's sort of like there's nothing in that says there's a possibility of something else. Whereas I don't understand has the word understand inside of it, which then psychologically says, okay, I just don't understand. I don't understand reality. Okay, again, so all of these again, I'm reviewing this because this is really important. Your tantric deity is a manifestation of all those things. You know, for example, the immutable, like if you take Yamantaka or Heruka, they have a deep blue, I mean, Yamantaka blue-black, but Heruka blue, deep blue color is because it's immutable in the nature of reality. So all of those things, having those understandings are really important, and that's what you personify it in the aspect of the deity. Okay, so then we then have, okay, I don't understand. What is it I don't understand? I don't understand that things are always changing because I'm attached, or then I don't understand that things have a continuity of causes and circumstances. So I create negative circumstances, negative causes for making suffering for myself. I don't understand that everything is interdependent, that it's a vast universal ocean. I mean, this is a universal ocean of interdependence. I don't understand that. I mean, and what's the best example of that? How we're incredibly destroying planet Earth, the pollution. If we appreciated we were interdependent, we'd take much better care of the planet Earth. But no, we see it as a resource. May I mine more of this and that, and may I take out, suck more oil out of the ground and this and that. And I'm, I mean, I benefit from all the little things that we have too. But we should really start to appreciate that we are interdependent and be careful about that. So again, that's I don't understand or I understand. So that's then when you understand the nature of reality, then you'll have less attachment and less aversion, less anger, okay? Because you have a more flexible mindset. I mean, things will change. Why get angry? Am I creating the causes and circumstances for things to improve? There's two ways with karma. There's the ripening effect, which is sort of coming from behind. And then the second thing is how I'm responding to the ripening effect. So you can look at karma in two ways, like something's manifesting, okay, there's causes and circumstances. If it's not very beneficial, it's not much fun, not good, okay, how am I responding? That's new karma into that old relationship, that old situation. So karma is very interesting. Anyway, so we have then, so I understand things will change. I understand that there's cause and circumstance. I understand that we're all interdependent. And then, that I am empty of any independent self-existence. Okay, now, so then that's that. And then we have bodhicitta. So this graduated path. And my bodhicitta is, may I bring all phenomena, all beings into enlightenment. And I mentioned last week about that depending on the philosophy we have, if you move to the the Madhyamika middle path, and again, I'm not going to get into the details because that then, we get very philosophical, but just simplistically, the outside world phenomena is totally a play of interdependence, empty of any self-existence. And that includes your body. So your body and all phenomena are in that category of an analysis of phenomena. So, for example, I mean, right now we're sitting here, take a breath. Well, you're immersed in a medium. We're immersed in the air. I mean, move your arms. You can feel the air moving around you. It's no different than being in the bottom of a swimming pool. You get that thing of like, I'm immersed. So generate that cognition. It's a valid cognition. I'm immersed. Okay. And then that's of course very much in harmony with I'm interdependent. But then switch it over to saying, okay, but I'm also penetrated. Take a breath, and that literally goes in, and you can see every cell of your body that is alive needs that air. So I'm immersed and penetrated. I am 100% interdependent. Now that's on phenomena because you're using your body. So that's a very nice way to do it. It's very simplistic, but it's, we are all well educated. We all understand that. I mean, I can't say that the Tibetans or back in India that they totally looked at it and understood it that way. But we have a totally, incredible educational system, and if nothing else, YouTube videos about, the nature of our body. And I mean, in one way, I often think of our body as the most unbelievable miracle because we do all these crazy things. We feed it crazy stuff, and yet it keeps us alive. It works it through and keeps us living. Anyway, point being though, if you then start to say, okay, I'm immersed in an ocean of atmosphere, I'm immersed in an ocean of interdependence. I'm not only that, I'm penetrated by that with every breath I take. What you're taking is your old attitude, which is rather rigid and hard, which doesn't like impermanence and doesn't want to be careful about karma and all of those things, and you're massaging it. And you're massaging it in a very real way for our culture. Because we understand, we completely, this having the right level of oxygen and nitrogen and whatever else is necessary in our atmosphere, it keeps us alive. So that's intelligence. I understand. Again, but that's on phenomena. Then you can shift over to your mind, which is the other four aggregates. And then every part of you is interdependent. Whether it's feelings, you need people in your life and situations. You need to be interdependent with those to have a feeling. Perceptions, you need to have an interdependence with those phenomena. I mean, whether it's the eye, the consciousness, or the mind and the consciousness, and then the visual object or the sound object, whatever, all of those needs to be interdependent. Then you can take the third volition or thoughts, basically. I mean, I like Alex Burson made a nice thing. Just saying everything else about you is the fourth aggregate. Or the fifth aggregate, it's perception, volitions. Anyway, so that's all of the experiences and things you've had. Well, all of those are interdependent. I mean, you take your education, you didn't pop out of the womb speaking Spanish, English, French, or whatever, or German, Schweizerdeutsch or something. You didn't have any of that. You had to be, mother and dad had to talk to you and such like that. So you needed to be interdependent. Then you got better at it because you went to school. You needed to be interdependent. Then you got a job where you needed to be educated, and then you needed clients. You needed to be interdependent. Then falling in love, you needed to be interdependent. And joy. I mean, one of the beautiful emotions, especially if you're older, and you give a present to a grandchild or a niece or nephew, and they just light up because they're just so happy, and you feel joy. You don't get that without interdependence. So there's a shift of consciousness of this incredible appreciation of all the things that create me. And then take our Buddha Dharma. I mean, thank you to all the lamas that we've had in our lives and all the Western teachers and whatever, I mean, thank you to all of those people because of them, we're getting the Buddha Dharma, so wow, thank you very much. So anyway, the point of that, both if we do an analysis of our sense of self, we also then come up with that we're completely interdependent. But in again, I think it's Aryadeva, it says that bodhisattvas first focus on the nature of phenomena as being, not independently self-existent or empty of self-existent or empty of inherent existence, whatever you want to use, or interdependent. You do that, and when you got that down, then you shift over to your sense of self. Because it's a very practical way. And remember, if we were a Hinayana Arhat, we only have to do sense of self. My sense of self is not truly existent. I can then go to a fine level of consciousness. It's all empty of any self-existence, and so therefore I have my personal release, my personal nirvana. End of story. But we're Mahayana Buddhists, so appreciating that I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence is really important. And then applying that to my personality, my sense of self. Anyway, so why am I talking about all that? Because we're going to shift into Tantra, and Tantra, you need that. There's a couple of things about first Tantra. Tantra is it's a personification of the graduated path, but it's a personification of enlightenment that's for the benefit of sentient beings. Now, in the two lower tantras, you normally do, visualizations of front or on top of your head or something, or maybe in your heart, depends. But when you move to the higher tantras, yoga and anuttara yoga, but especially anuttara yoga, you have what's called initiation, which transforms your 5 aggregates. So this is the subject for today's class, which is that basically that in the anuttara yoga, what you are given is you're introduced to your Buddha nature. And synonyms for Buddha nature, is Buddha nature, Dharmakaya, nature of reality. They're all synonyms because in you is Dharmakaya. It's just you have no ability to access it. It's not that it's not there, it is there. It is the most subtle level of consciousness, it's clear light. Anyway, so at the time of an initiation, you're taken through the Vase initiation, and this is all anuttara yoga now. Vase initiation is the transformation of your 5 aggregates, and then you have the purification of your nervous system, which is the secret initiation, generating a bliss within that transformed 5 aggregates, which is the transcendental wisdom initiation, and then the word initiation, which describes what all of that was all about. But the big thing is that why does Tantra make a difference, especially Anuttara Yoga Tantra make a difference, is because literally you're given a new birth certificate. Now, what does that mean? Okay, again, if you've studied a little bit, you'll know we're supposed to abandon our mundane sense of self. like your mundane sense of being an ordinary person with nothing, whatever, however you want to refer it. So, you know, it says, abandon the mundane sense of self. Okay, well, if you think, I mean, you know, and okay, so the example I want to give, and I can't quite do it for people in Switzerland because maybe you guys are really lucky, but let's just say that, you know, you think you're Swiss or you're French or whatever, maybe you're German. Okay, depends on the audience. Okay, and you totally believed in that. You identified with that. And then one day someone came along and said, no, I'm sorry, but this is your birth certificate. And I'm sorry, you're a Canadian. You no longer have to identify with what you are Canadian. You're going to get all the benefits of being a Canadian, the healthcare system, the education, that it's a nice, you know, pacifist country, reasonably so, you know, all of these things. And so what happens is your previous identifications with I'm an ordinary or I'm Swiss or whatever, you go, oh, I got my real birth certificate. And I'm actually Canadian. You know, I can go back to Canada. I can come in. I don't need a visa. I'm a Canadian. Okay, now that's just an example. But the example is that you previously believed that you were Swiss or German, or you had a certain mom and dad. Maybe you were speaking Schweizerdeutsch, or maybe you're speaking French, or maybe you're speaking Italian, you know, because you're in Switzerland, you know, depends on the part of the country you're in and stuff like that. Okay, so you had all of those, and then you sort of believed in them, like, of course, that's who I am. Okay, well, when you get into tantric initiation, it says, no, your real source is your Buddha nature. It's your Dharmakaya. And you then will come from there. Every time you manifest as a tantric deity, you manifest out of Dharmakaya into Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, which are forms. So what is Dharmakaya? Dharmakaya is your personal liberation. It's the omniscient mind of the Buddhas. And we all have it. You know, there's an example, and maybe I did it last week. I can't remember all the things I teach, but okay, there's your five senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. There's your personality. And down here at the base of your hand is your Buddha nature. It's your most subtle. So this is called coarse, subtle, and very subtle. Okay, our life normally is very externalized. It's forms and feelings and the things we hear and stuff like that. We're very external. Okay, and then our personality gets affected by all of that. Okay, but when you start to get some Buddha Dharma teachings, okay, you start to have a different appreciation. The outside world doesn't satisfy you, no matter how much you might chase it or whatever. You know, it's who you are. Or as Lama Yeshe said, it's inner quality. It's like the real practice of Dharma is it's inner quality. It's not external phenomena. So you start to have that identification. Okay. And that changes your attitude. You become a nicer person, beneficial and such like that. But when you practice Tantra, you're introduced to a couple more facets to this, okay? This side of your hand is what's called knowing. That side of your hand is the energy. Now, knowing and energy are basically, it's the same hand, just depends on the perspective you have, okay? So if you looked at knowing, well, the knowing is all the experiences you've had, how you grew up, how you were educated, what you believe in, your attitude. That's how you know yourself, okay? That's this part here. This part here is the energy, just consciousness, form, feeling, smell. Those are the five sense stores or conscious energy. It's like electricity. And that electricity has to be able to communicate with this part of you. So it's all the same. It's consciousness, it's coarse consciousnesses, subtle consciousnesses, and down at the base is very subtle consciousness, okay? But it's one hand, depends how you look at it. There's your knowing, how you understand yourself, and this side is then your energy. This coarse, subtle, or very subtle, okay? Now, when you, if you don't have much wisdom, you're rather mundane and just do your life. But let's just say on the knowing side, you start to understand things are always changing. It's first teaching impermanence, okay? Things are always changing. What's that mean? Well, you get more flexible. You know, you're in a bad situation, wait 5 minutes, it'll change, you know, or some whatever. Then it's like, it's not arbitrary. Whatever is happening has causes and circumstances. So therefore then, okay, if I've got something bad happening, it will change. Okay, it has causes and circumstances. May I not repeat those causes and circumstances? May I create some new karma? Okay, so there you're getting more flexible. This knowing side isn't, me, mundane, I believe in things, I'm so intense about life. No, hey, okay, let me create some good karma. Let me sort of do better with my situations, because they're always changing, because I can create better karma, I can improve myself, things like that. And then of course I'm interdependent. That comes back to the example I gave you. Phenomena empty of self-existence. I'm completely interdependent. I'm immersed and penetrated physically in this ocean of atmosphere, in this universe or this solar system of sun and planets and atmosphere and all of that. It's all a huge play of interdependence. Okay, so I'm interdependent. And my personality, it's not self-existent. I'm affected by the traumas I had as a child, or maybe the good situations I had as a child, the education I had. Then I met the Dharma. That's all things. So the thing that the interdependence, it's again making you more flexible. One way I like to use the word is making you more open. My personality is not a fixed thing. With good attitude, I can change myself. I can have a better experience about things. So we have on the side of knowing, things are impermanent, they're always changing. It's a continuity of causes and circumstances. I can create new causes and circumstances. It's all interdependent. Then, as I say, I like to throw in, it's open. I am an open phenomenon to being influenced and affected. And I'm finally empty of self-existence. Okay, so that's the knowing side. So what happens with the energy side? Normally, my energy is very much, tied. It's one object, remembers, but the thing is, if I get upset, something bothers me, my energy gets really intense. I get angry. Okay, but now you've got the Dharma. You've got, as Lama Yeshe called it, he says, wisdom is called cool because it makes you peaceful. So if you're angry, you're hot. If you appreciate it's impermanent, it cools you down. If you don't want to recreate the karma of being more angry, it cools you down. If you appreciate you're interdependent and some bad karma is ripening, that's why you're getting angry, you calm down, you cool down. Okay. Anyway, so the point is that if on this side of you, the knowing side gets more intelligent, understands, it means the energy side of you gets more flexible. Now, to that understanding, you add meditation. What's meditation? Shutting down the 5 sense doors, getting more focused and concentrated, getting subtler levels of consciousness, and then you can go down to the base of the hand, which is the clear light. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, you have to, purify your nervous system and a bunch of other things. I mean, in tantric point of view, you have to open your central channel. But the bottom line is that if you have wisdom on the knowing side, and to that then you add meditation, then the energy can come from being coarse, I'm agitated, to by being pretty peaceful. So wow, I can be very peaceful. I can be, without form, just consciousness itself. I can be Dharmakaya. Okay, now, so the thing is, when you get an initiation, you are introduced to the fact that you have Dharmakaya. Now, the only reason you can't access it is because the knowing side of you is all messed up with your delusions and you're over-validating your mundane self, et cetera, et cetera. So what you do is you identify with the deity. This is highest Anuttara yoga, so it's you can be the deity. Well, that sort of facilitates you to be different. You got that new birth certificate. You are no longer Swiss. You're actually a Canadian. You get all the benefits of being Canadian. You're going to get the Canadian pension. I ain't done anything. Isn't that wonderful? Okay. Anyway, point being is that when the understanding is correct about the nature of reality, and with that, then you have good meditation, you can be more and more subtle in your inside of yourself, and you can end up with accessing your most subtle, the clear light nature of your consciousness. That is Dharmakaya. So in Anuttara Yoga, you're given a new birth certificate, and your mundane sense of self that thinks you're Swiss or whatever it may be, it no longer applies. You know, I'm coming from Dharmakaya. This rebirth came from my mom and my dad in a certain cultural situation and out of the 1960s, 70s, 80s, or whatever it may have been. That's mundane. I really came from Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is my most profound nature. It's my clear light nature of my consciousness. Okay. And that's my personal liberation. Okay. So that's an initiation. You are identified with that. And then from that, then of course your 5 aggregates are transformed. And the vase initiation, and you have the second one is the secret initiation, which is then purifies all the nervous system, your chakras and channels and everything like that. Then within that transformed 5 aggregates with a purified nervous system, then you have the transcendental wisdom initiation, which is generating bliss within that, which then that is to help open up the central channel, be able to have a more subtle level of experiences of consciousness. And then all of that is explained in the word initiation, that you can have a clear light level of consciousness. That's the Dharmakaya, and then you can manifest Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. It explains it all, like how it works. Okay, so that's an Anuttara Yoga initiation. But what you want to think about is, and if you're going to do Anuttara Yoga, is okay, I got a new birth certificate. I'm no longer yes, I've got the karmic trappings of whatever I've done, but now I've got a new birth certificate, and that's my real birth certificate. That's where I'm really coming from. Okay, and one of the words for the Dharmakaya is called Tathagata Garbha. It's called the womb of suchness. So it has a feminine quality. So out of the womb of reality, womb of suchness, Tathagata Garbha, all the Buddhas are born. So it said Tara or Prajnaparamita, they are the mother of all Buddhas. Okay, but the point is, that's where you are born from. But rather than being mundane again, like just I come out and I got my mundane karma, no, I come out and I become Sambhogakaya. I'm for the benefit of sentient beings. This bodhicitta, that's all it is. My Dharmakaya is my personal liberation. When I come out of that, have a coarser level of consciousness, I then am for the benefit of sentient beings. So you completely identify with, I manifested to be of benefit in some way. Okay, but again, that's subtle. That's the Sambhogakaya, it's subtle. So then you say, no, I need to be more manifest because I have to benefit sentient beings. Then I turn into the deity, whether it's Heruka, Yamataka, Guhya Samaja, Vajrayogini, Chittamani Tara, whatever the deity you want to particularly practice, that's your manifestation. That's your physical manifestation, your Nirmanakaya, only for the benefit of sentient beings. You wouldn't know other reason to do that. You have personal liberation, Dharmakaya. So if you're going to come out of that, why? Well, you come out because of bodhicitta. May I be of benefit? I'm subtle. Okay, may I be of more benefit than I manifest? So I'm Nirmanakaya. Okay, so now we have, let's say, a context of why Tantra psychologically is an accurate practice. It's not just a fantasy. So let's come back to then our basic understanding. I'm in an ocean of interdependence. This is a universal ocean of interdependence. Okay, so when we were Dharmakaya, we were the most subtle, like so subtle, so fine, like no form was manifesting. It was just a state of consciousness that was very subtle, very fine. Now that's actually related with death, which again, I won't go into all the details, but let's just say it's related with death. Then when you animate, it's equivalent to the Bardo intermediate state, but the thing is, you are a subtle astral form. Okay, so when you do that, it's like the consciousness of your Dharmakaya became a little coarser, but not too coarse, but it's a subtle energy. So it's normally a shaft of light or it's a seed syllable or something like that. Okay, and its nature is completely of benefit. So instead of like, if you were coming, okay, if you were not a Buddhist and you weren't a Bodhisattva, when you went to, let's say you got down to very clear, very subtle level of consciousness. And then when you start to animate from that, you just animate your old karmas, because they would automatically start to form, as consciousness starts to come up. Like when you wake up getting in the morning, asleep all night, first you sort of say, okay, where am I? And then, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in Switzerland, I'm in Zurich, and I have to go to my job. That's the sort of coarser levels of consciousness with context. Okay, well, we're a tantric practitioner, we're a bodhisattva, or well, we're Buddha in this case, of course, but we could say we're a bodhisattva practicing to be a Buddha. So from that very subtle level of consciousness, we start to animate. We don't animate our mundane karmas. We animate as, a Sambhogakaya. So it could be, a seed syllable, it could be a shaft of light, it could be a deity. I mean, if you do Yamantaka practice, it's Manjushri. If you're Vajrayogini, it's a syllable bomb. Different entities, but they are with the 32 major and 80 minor marks. So you try, I mean, again, we're attempting, but you try to say, I'm of the nature of benefit, I'm subtle, but all my old karmas are in that context now. Okay, then you say, okay, well, I need to be more manifest for the benefit of sentient beings. Okay, so then you manifest, as Tara, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, or Heruka, Vajrayogini, whatever deity. That's then the coarser manifestation. Again, you are really trying to follow that. So, use our example as like, I have a Canadian birth certificate, and as I come out of that, I don't identify with being Swiss anymore. I identify with that I'm a Canadian and all the qualities of whatever that might be. Okay, so this example. So I come out of Dharmakaya. Okay, that's my personal liberation, clear light state of level of consciousness. It's the most subtle level of consciousness. As I come out from that, I then take a conscious decision to be of benefit. So whatever karmas might be trying to manifest from my mundane sense of self, I don't identify with them. I don't believe in them anymore. I believe in my bodhicitta. I believe in, may I be of benefit. So that affects you on a subtle level. And then finally, you manifest into the full world. Okay, you are the deity and such. And you just sort of completely try to say, I am a benefit. Now, maybe I'm not super beneficial because I'm not fully realized yet, but I'm in the right direction. And it's in the teachings, for example, they say regular bodhisattvas who do not have tantric practice cultivate their practice in their lifetime, but they don't get the culminate or the ripened effect of that until they die. And when they die and then take a new rebirth, then all the karmas can manifest of what they previously accumulated. It's said in Tantra that every time, if the bodhisattva does a good job, goes to Dharmakaya and comes back out, they animate themselves or they remanifest themselves with that karma more quickly. So you don't need to have a death, rebirth as a regular sutra bodhisattva. Just every time you go through, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, or death, bardo, rebirth, which is what they're based on, that you actually can cultivate yourself faster. You can transform yourself faster. Okay, so come back to okay, so you now then have manifested yourself. You're for the benefit of sentient beings. You are Avalokiteshvara, or in this case, high tantra. So you're Vajrayogini, Yamantaka, Goya Samaja, Heruka, whatever deity you are, Chittamani Tara, Hebadra, or I can't remember. The Lama Zopa does a lot of what Hebadra, I think. No, isn't it? I can't remember. Anyway, forgive me. Okay, anyway, so that now the thing is then, now you implement those wisdoms I talked about. Okay, everything's impermanent, always changing. It has continuity of causes and circumstances. Everything's interdependent. But the big one to look at is, because now you're talking about a relative perspective on the nature of reality. Okay, relative perspective of nature of reality. All these phenomena are manifesting, but they're empty of any self-existence. They're all always changing, having continuity of causes and circumstances. They're all interdependent, all open to changes and whatever might be affecting them and such like that. That's relative perspective on the nature of reality. Ultimate perspective, everything disappears because it's just the ultimate nature. You actually focus on the nature of reality, not on the individual phenomena anymore. By focusing on the nature, that pervades all phenomena because it's the universal nature of all phenomena. So because it's the universal nature and you cognize it, everything disappears. Ultimate perspective. If things start manifesting, relative perspective with an appreciation continuity, causes and circumstances, it's always changing, it's all interdependent, okay? And you can say empty of self-existence, but you appreciate it in a relative perspective. Okay, so having said that, why? Okay, so and being a deity is your tantric deity. Okay, you are a bodhisattva. That's the bottom line. I mean, you have to be a bodhisattva to practice Buddhist tantra. Okay, so that means your nature is for the benefit of sentient beings. So then what you have to look at, okay, there's what we call the Pure Land. Now, again, I think that it's important that we look at our culture and our terminology, because you know, Pure Land, everything's pure, okay. Now, so what I like to think of it is we're in the playground of enlightenment. So let's say if you have, you know, you guys in Europe, you like soccer, or maybe like basketball, I don't know. So we're in the playground, the field, the play court of enlightenment. Okay, I and all sentient beings, we're all the deity. We're playing the game of enlightenment against what? Well, against our delusions. That's the opposing team. So when you look at yourself as I and all sentient beings are on the same team, we're all the deity. So I don't know the names of your Swiss football teams, but let's say there's Real Madrid, or I don't know, or Lancaster, or whatever, you know, in England or whatever. The thing is, you know, you have to think we're all on the same team. So when you look at any other sentient being, we're all, you know, of the same group, the same Liverpool. Okay, thanks. Okay, we're all on the same team though. So it means that we have a camaraderie. Okay, but for a Buddhist tantric practitioner, we all have Buddha nature. We can all become enlightened. Just some of us are not so skillful about it, but we can help them. So we're going to help the members on our team. Okay, so that's all sentient beings are pure. They're pure of being deluded. They're pure of, they have the potential of becoming enlightened. Okay, we're all playing the same game, the game of enlightenment. And again, our adversary is the delusions. So that gives you, I and all sentient beings are the deity. And what is our activity? It's the activity of enlightenment. So it's, I'm in the playground of enlightenment. We're playing the game of enlightenment, and we're all on the same team. Okay, that's just a little bit different phraseology. Again, it might not be totally accurate, but it gives you a nice feeling about it. So next time you step outside, you think, hey, we're all on the same team. We're all, you know, with Liverpool or with Real Madrid or whatever it may be. Okay, so that's one component of Pure Land, all beings a deity. Then the second component, though, it is more mundane, but in the sense that what's the game we're playing? It's the game of enlightenment, bringing, or let's say, liberating delusions. Now, I like to phrase it a little differently, to bring delusions into enlightenment. So, because external phenomena, this is Madhyamika view, external phenomena and internal phenomena, or internal, the mind, are equally empty of any inherent self-existence. They are an ocean of interdependence. So, in myself as the deity, if a delusion within myself starts coming up, I help to bring it into enlightenment. I bring my angry mind into enlightenment. I bring my attached mind into enlightenment. Okay, and if you do that with your own delusions, then when you're with another person who's angry or attached, you already have that facility. You have that inclination to do that. Like, it's not like, oh, you're a difficult person. So may I help you come into enlightenment? You know, so that that's understanding that both external phenomena and internally the mind are equally empty of any self-existent. That's the Madhyamika philosophy. And again, there's Rangtong and Shentong, and I won't get into that. We're just talking about the basic concept. Okay. Now, that's then where your graduated path comes in. You don't, you know, when you manifest as a deity, you are a personification of the graduated path to enlightenment. What is the graduated path to enlightenment? It's a better psychological point of view to have. I have wonderful potentiality. I have a precious human rebirth. I know what's important and I know what's not important. I'm inspired by enlightened beings. I would make prostrations to enlightened beings because of all of their cultivation and such like that. I'm mindful of my karma. I help other sentient beings be mindful of their karma is appropriate. Okay, I understand the nature of reality. That's how I'm practicing my Tantra. Okay, so Tantra is really, really interesting. It's a very, I mean, you know, you might sort of consider it a fantasy, you know, like you have a mandala with 4 doors in the 4 directions and you're the deity in the center. Maybe there's minor deities around you and all of that. But all that's just basically your mind manifest. It's your 5 aggregates manifest, you know, and then it's your delusions or it's your purification and such like that. So Anuttara Yoga Tantra, very powerful. It relies on you being a Tantric Bodhisattva. It relies on you, or being a Bodhisattva, relies on you having graduated path to some extent and such. And then basically, you know, you are in, let's say, in closer harmony to the activity of the Buddhas. So an example you can give is sort of, rather than looking at the altar with great devotion, it's like you say, okay, well, what's the altar doing? Well, the altar is working for the benefit of all sentient beings with wisdom and compassion. Well, then you just turn around and face the same direction as the altar. So you are facing out, you're working for the benefit of sentient beings. So although you draw an inspiration from Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and all the other things, your action is out towards sentient beings. Or as Shantideva says, you know, venerating the Buddhas or working for the benefit of sentient beings is equal. So anyway, interesting. Okay, so I'm really put a whole bunch of stuff together in one quick shot because I've only got 2 classes with you. So okay, it's fine and dandy. I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover about Anuttara Yoga. The big difference is that you are introduced to your Dharmakaya. You get a new birth certificate. From that, then when you manifest, you only, that's because that's your personal liberation, that birth certificate, Dharmakaya. When you manifest from that, it is nothing but bodhicitta for the benefit of sentient beings. Any aspect or form that you take, it's part of the graduated path. It's part of what will be beneficial for sentient beings. So whether it's the jewelry of a deity is the 6 perfections, and then the various other facets. I mean, it depends on each deity. Okay, so that's sort of in a nutshell. Anuttara Yoga is you get a new birth certificate that you have to believe in and stop believing in your old mundane identification. And then from that birth certificate, which is your Dharmakaya, you manifest with bodhicitta for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, that's just you know, a sort of a Western way to sort of put this together that we can appreciate it. And then when we do manifest, we are in the playground of enlightenment. We're playing the game of enlightenment, and I and all sentient beings are on the same team. Okay, so that's sort of one sort of added little thing to add to it. And then just coming back to the nature of reality, I am immersed in an ocean of interdependence, universal ocean of interdependence. You know, may I be like a stick of incense that makes the world smell a little bit nicer. That's my aspect as a deity. My aspect is, may I be a benefit? May I in some way benefit sentient beings? So just as a stick of incense by its nature makes the room more aromatic. So the same thing, by really allowing yourself to believe that you are a bodhisattva or Buddha, the deity, your nature is like that incense. It naturally makes the world a better place. So that's where then you really try to have that identification with your birth certificate and then your manifestations. Okay, I think that pretty much covers sort of introduction. So you get excited about your tantric practice. Okay, so questions, I guess. That's an hour, so have some questions, commentaries.
Yes, raise your hand or just ask away. Yes, Andrea.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay. Andrea, yeah, I can see them. Andrea, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jhampa. So I have a question about the commitments. When you take a highest yoga tantric initiation, then you have also new commitments, the 6 session guru yoga and maybe some sadhana. And I would like to be a little bit interested, how can, with this 6-session Guru Yoga, in a time, because many of us are quite busy with working and kids, and how can I put in my daily life this 6-session Guru Yoga, and how, yes, theoretically, how can it fit? How can I fit it without it's not too much overwhelming or something like that?
Okay, yeah, well, good point, good question. Now there are, let's say, the Dalai Lama, when he gives Kala Chakra, normally asks for a very extensive 6-session Guru Yoga, and that's good. There is a shorter version, just 1 page, and then there's an incredibly short version by Ngultru Dharma Bhadra, which is only like 5 lines. Okay, but the bottom line is that doing 6-session Guru Yoga, it's what keeps all of your promises you made in the Vase initiation to the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, or the 5 Buddha families. Okay, so the 6-session Guru Yoga is important. You could do it 3 times at night and 3 times in the, or 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night, or you just do it 6 times in a row. You can do, for example, the Dalai Lama's long version once, and then you can do the 1-page one 5 times, or you could do the 1-page one once, and then you do the 5-line one 5 times. I mean, there's lots of ways to sort of adjust it and such. But again, I mean, you don't want to look that the 5-line version is sufficient. I mean, it is, according to Ngultru Dharma Bhadra, a practice of the 6-session Guru Yoga. But obviously, it's incredibly abbreviated, and it's for people that are really busy. What you want is that you know, you flesh it out. Now, if you did, for example, again, depends on the Lama and who gives the initiations, okay? So if they give just the 6-session Guru Yoga, that's nice. If they can give you the 6-session Guru Yoga in a deity practice, well, do they give you a long or short version of the deity yoga? That depends on the time that you have. You normally can approach the Lama and say, you know, depending on my life and what I have happening, I don't have enough time for this, so can I do this or that? And I mean, I have some friends that are, you know, Tibetan incarnate lamas who are teaching in the West, and they had the body mandala of Heruka. And that's a 1.5 hour practice for a Tibetan, doing it at a high velocity recitation. Okay. And so that some of those lamas went to Trichin Rinpoche and said, please, you know, I need to do a shorter thing. I'm in the West and it's very busy. So he adjusted it. So I'm just sharing with you that if you have an opportunity to talk to the teacher, you can normally adjust your commitment a little bit. But the bottom line is 6-session Guru Yoga have to do every day for the rest of your life when you take Anuttara Yoga. Why? Because it's keeping all the promises you made to the 5 Buddha families. That's the reason why you do it. Now, if you did, for example, the 1-page 6-session Guru Yoga, and you didn't have any deity practice that you had to do for that particular initiation, when you become, well, in this case, Vajrasattva is the standard for the 6-session Guru Yoga, you could become Vajrayogini, Chittamani Tara, Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, Heruka, just at that moment. And then if you wanted to, you could recite their mantras a little bit, and then you would do the concluding part of the 6-session Guru Yoga. So that's something you could do to make your 6-session Guru Yoga a little bit more full, and not just sort of like a brief thing. But the main thing is that, yeah, if you take Anuttara Yoga, you do the 6-session Guru Yoga every day for the rest of your life. And it's said that if you can keep that commitment purely, that within the minimum of 16 rebirths, you would get enlightened. And of course, if you've got some ability to practice a little bit harder, you could, you know, get enlightened faster. So that's on the power of commitment that you can get enlightened in 16 rebirths. Okay. So I think that sort of answers. So bottom line anyway, yeah, if you take Anuttara Yoga initiations, yeah, you've got practice to do. I'm sorry, you have to fit it in there with the rest of your life.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I already have some kind of commitments. That's why I'm asking, you know, how to fit, but thank you. It was very good. Okay,
well, I'll tell you actually that I mean, I was a monk for 14 years. And when I became a layman, I do all the practices I ever did as a monk. Okay, I mean, nothing changed. But what you can do is, especially with the lower tantras, you just drop it down to their mantras. Okay, so for example, when I get up in the morning, I do my 6-session Guru Yoga. I then do white Tara. I then do black Manjushri. Then I do the 100 Gods of Tushita. Then I go into doing Mani Padme Hum 100 times because I got that from the Dalai Lama. I then do 400 of the Chittamani Tara mantra. And then I go into my Yamantaka practice and I do that extensively. And then I drop it back down. So you basically, you shrink some things down, but you still do a little bit just to keep the connection, and you expand other things up. And again, it depends on the Lama, but for example, I mean, I have permission from the Dalai Lama to give initiations. I got it back in 1988 in an audience, so I can give all the Anatara Yoga initiations that I have the lineage for. When I do that, I make sure they only do succession guru yoga, but then they could do Yamantaka. Then if they move over to Vajrayogini, they can drop Yamantaka and go to Vajrayogini. And the only reason I do that is because we're Westerners, we're lay people, and so it's hard to do big practices of a lot of deities, but rather do one for a period of 2 or 3 years, drop it down, do it to another one for 2 or 3 years, drop it down, like that. This is my suggestion. I'm not saying all lamas do that, but let's say from my point of view as a teacher, I do that. Okay, Anna, you have a question?
Hi, Jhampa. Apologies for my lateness, but I think you've probably already covered it. And I just wanted to know, was it a common experience for people who take the highest tantric initiations or vows to have like a distinct feeling of loss of, you know, all of this time and effort you've invested in this conventional life? And you know,
The feeling of loss is of what? The loss of what? I don't know.
It's like wasted effort in some sense.
Your previous life?
It wasted time and effort in conventional mundane things, and not to be nihilistic about everything, but
okay, no, but stop. Okay,
yeah,
all of the things that you did, you have wisdom from those now.
yes,
So don't judge yourself, but just say,
yeah,
look, I at one time I was an incredibly vain woman and I spent hours in the salon, you know, and I suddenly go, oh, that doesn't count anymore. So it's not a judgment on yourself, but you know, when you're with another woman, again, skillfully, that's the whole thing is skillful means, is you say, you know, how beautiful you are. It's not so important. It's what's inside, you know, I mean, again, so all of the things that you would consider mundane. Now, the example comes from Tumba Rinpoche, okay, so excuse me, it's a bit gross, but he says, all the shit that you have over the last 20 years of your life, it all has a potential of becoming fertilizer. It all depends on your view. So instead of thinking, I've wasted my life, then it's just shit. But say, okay, I've had these experiences. I had several boyfriends and it didn't work. I was, you know, vain, and I went to the gym every day for 3 hours to make myself look really buff. But gee, you know, I'm going to die one day. It's going to kill me, my body, you know. So I have now the wisdom of all those things. So it's not like that they were bad, but you have real experience that those things weren't beneficial. And that's powerful compared to somebody else who sits there and say, I really want to go to the salon and get my hair done, but oh no, that's not the Dharma, you know, I can't do that because that's just my vanity. And, you know, come on, I mean, you can get your hair done, look attractive, but be attractive because then when someone says, gee, you're such an attractive woman, Anna, you can say, yes, because I meditate.
thank you. That's, yeah, that's really useful.
Anyway, so bottom line is that next time you look at something you did and you're saying, oh, gee, that's a bunch of shit, then say, no, it's not. It's something that helps me become a richer person. You know, it's my fertilizer of my life, okay? Okay, Eva, you had a question.
Yes, thank you so much. It's wonderful. And I have some very personal things to ask.
You can do it privately if you want. You don't have to do it.
No, it's okay. I think it's maybe useful for others as well, because I have quite a lot of commitments, and Guru Yoga is only one of it. And I'm really determined to do it as I promised to do every day. But since a few months, it happened to me that 3 times I couldn't do. So I was fall asleep, because usually I practice in the evening. So what And then I thought, okay, to feel guilty or whatever is not the right thing. And I know that there is with self-initiation can also purify again. But I thought it's every day for lifetime. And if one day or 2 days, I really have good reason to not do. What would you recommend for me?
Well, okay, if you miss one day, it's not the end of the world, you know, I mean, that's the thing, it's okay. Now, the way that you know that you missed a day is if, you know, like say you fell asleep, when you wake up, if it's still dark outside and you go out and you look at the palm of your hand, and if it's dark enough, you know, there's no street lights, you cannot see the lines of your hand, it's still the previous day. Okay, that's one way to check up, okay? Just because maybe you can still do it at 5 in the morning and it's still for the previous day.
That's what I did, but one time I didn't. I really did nothing. I mean, I had when I wake up, I did the yogas, so with my teacher, you know, so my heart teacher.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's,
So
I feel the connection still, you know. It was only not the whole sadhanas and all.
well, okay, the next one is you double your practice for that day. So, I mean, I sometimes have missed some things, so you just double it. So instead of 6 Guru Yoga, you do 12 Guru Yoga. Lama Chopa, I do Lama Chopa every day, so I just double it. I do it 2 times. You know, I mean, and actually the commitment, if you're really sort of serious or a thing, is it's reading it. You know, so you don't have to actually sit down and do the meditations, you just have to read it. But that's like really minimal. But the point is, that is the commitment. It's, if you look at it, is I will read this every day. So I don't know if you were in France when the Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave the Heruka and Vajrayogini, that was in 2019. Yeah, so he gave a Heruka practice, which is not the 3 purifications. So, you know, I do other practices, but I do that every day, but I read it. You know, I mean, I do look at it and think about it a little bit. I mean, it's not that sort of just blah, 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 but I just read it because that was the commitment. So just to be careful, you know, that okay, double it the next day, you know, then basically be mindful. Now, I have the best example, especially for you women, okay? How seriously should you take your commitments? So the example is this, and this is one of my students in Canada gave me this. She said, I woke up at 3 in the morning and realized I hadn't done my commitments, and I was like just in shock. And then I realized it was no different than if I'd made love the previous night and I forgot to take the pill. Nobody's laughing. Anyway. Okay, so the thing is it's that sort of serious. I better have taken my pill, but, you know, or make sure I don't get pregnant. Anyway, so the point is that my answer would be just double your practices the following day. You could talk to your teacher if they're still alive, and such. Those would be the sort of standard things you could do. Generally speaking, the teacher would normally just say double your practice. So that would be what I've experienced with most of my teachers. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Thank you.
if you really lost your practice for like 2 or 3 months and you consciously didn't do it, then you have to do 100,000 Vajrasattva or a self-initiation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, anyway, so other question. Okay, any other hands? I don't see other hands.
Any question at all? Medina has one.
See, Adrina.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I would like to ask a question also regarding commitments. I don't have any right now, but I'm seriously considering taking 2. First would be orange manjushri and second white tara. And I would like to ask your advice or your opinion. What kind of commitments will I have? I'm sure the teacher will explain everything, but I would like to have some heads up.
Well, the main commitment would be refuge and bodhicitta, because those are lower tantras. So the thing is that just every day you do a refuge and bodhicitta. That would be one. Again, how much you recite the mantra, that depends on whether you have to do a sadhana or whether you just can do the mantra. Again, that depends on the teacher at the time of the initiation. So you're right that when you take it, the teacher will give you the commitment that would be asked of that. Those two practices, generally speaking, you know, like, for example, Medicine Buddha, you can do a really nice practice of Medicine Buddha. It's quite long, but it's good. You know, it's a basic tantra. Again, I don't think many teachers give that as a commitment, but that's one. White Tara is very standard. It's not a long sadhana. I think it's about 1 page, the practice, that's nothing. Manjushri, again, it's like a short sadhana. So I don't think the commitments are overly large for those particular practices. So yeah, go for it. The big commitment is that I'm a bodhisattva. That's the one that you really want to focus on. May my life be of benefit to others. And that's why I practice Tara, and that's why I practice Manjushri, to be of more intelligent and to have a long life and such. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Then Andrea had another one.
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you. My other question is that I've also heard, I mean, from a person, she's 30, 40 years a practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner, and she told me that I shouldn't talk about these initiation. So kind of I should, if I took an initiation, it kind of, I have to keep it secretly or something. Is that right? Or, but may I ask questions about some deities and such things? Or,
okay,
you know, how can I ask questions if it should be, if I should keep secretly? Or, yes, this is my question. Is that correct or not? Or
okay, the answer is this. It's no different than going to a psychology meeting, like, or let's say a psychiatrist or psychologist. Having gone there, you don't come out and say, oh, my psychologist said that I have a low self-esteem and blah, 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 blah. I remember he's like, why are you talking about that? That's private stuff. So Tantra is a private practice. If you're really lucky, you have access to your teachers who can assist you as you continue to practice. So it's no different than having a private therapist in that way that you keep it secret. Like, you know, you don't talk about your private, intimate life with your husband. You know, that's personal stuff. So that's the same thing. Tantra's like that. It's a private, personal thing that you're doing. Okay. As for talking with people, well, if you're, you know, I mean, if another person has the initiation, you can talk to them, and you can talk to any teacher that has, you know, has qualification as a tantric teacher. No, those are all fine, but it's just you don't talk to the public about it. Like I do, you know, I'm practicing Vajrayogini and I visualize myself as naked. You wouldn't do that.
oh no, okay, thank you. This is a big help because I thought that one should also not talk to other teachers or ask questions, but it is okay then ask questions from a teacher or such a thing. Yeah.
But again, well, one thing you should know is that every teacher has their opinion. So you ask one teacher and they'll give you one opinion. You ask another teacher, they'll give you another opinion. Now, the way that I've had that problem, you know, when I was in India as a monk, Geshe Dhargaye loved to tell me what I should do with myself. And then Lama Yeshe, who I had incredible love for, also told me what I should do for myself. And so I ended up having a confusion of like, these two teachers were not saying totally contradictory, but were saying different things. So I ended up, I'd go to Ling Rinpoche, who was the head of the Gelugpa, and I would ask his advice and he would give me advice. And so if then Geshe Dhargaye said, are you doing what I asked you to do? You could say, well, I've talked to Ling Rinpoche and he said I should do this. And then Geshe Dhargaye wouldn't have anything to say because that was one of his gurus. So not that that's what you want to do, but it can be that teachers contradict each other. So I'm saying some things here. I'm sure there'd be another teacher somewhere that would say I'm completely wrong and I'm doing the wrong thing because they have an opinion and I have an opinion. Okay, so just do be aware that if you ask too many teachers, you might get varying opinions. So be a little careful of that. Okay.
Thank you. You know, we don't have, or I don't have so, how do you say, I don't have so much possibilities to ask questions from a qualified teacher. Not that I have many, but that's why it was this question from my side. Yes. yet, but thank you for the explanation. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Oh.
I have a question. There's
No,
this-
Lars, you can't ask questions. I'm sorry. You're the.
All right. All right, I'm quiet.
Oh, no, I just.
All right. Then that's the thing about tangas with tantric aspects, like the one that you have covered behind you, and also sometimes a PMT text saying this is only suitable to read for those who have the initiation. Right. What if we went to a museum having a statue of one of the highest tantric aspects? Am I allowed to watch it, or should I just say, oh, I'm not allowed to watch that?
Well, I mean, you need to be, say exposed, but you need to, I mean, seeing these deities, I mean, online, there's every possible deity you could ever possibly think of online if you Google it. So looking at them and then seeing, I would think that, with the way things are, the Dalai Lama said this. He said that nowadays, because there's so many things which are so easily available to the public, it's better people are educated about deities than they're not. So he then says things can be published in the general public about high tantra because it's better that people are educated than not educated. So if you see a high tantra deity and you go, oh, that one looks really interesting, well, check it out and look at it. Maybe it's a good deity for you personally, I mean, that's something to check out. So yeah, I would not think that you need to imagery and statues and stuff, they're fine to look at. If you did get interested, let's just say, for example, you got interested in the 5 deities of Heruka. Okay, I think Lama Zopa just gave that initiation, or he's going to give it quite soon. So let's say you're in interest. So you would want to have the initiation before you studied it. But you could look at maybe some general things. Like I talked about general tantra now quite extensively, highest level tantra. But my audience is all Buddhist. It is educational. I didn't give you any special techniques to do, but I gave you information about why you would practice it. So that's all okay. Better to be well educated than to not.
Thank you. Thank you. And Eva, did you have a question?
Sorry, the wrong button. No, only I want to say that in Land of Joy, they have one statue that you can see only when you have initiation, for example.
Yeah,
so,
well,
it's quite often that you, in the centers, you have covered in Gompas also that the High Yoga Tantra statues are not visible for everyone.
Yeah, that's true, because it's a Dharma center. And for your private house, you should keep your things private. But if you are, walking and, say you go to a market and there's a statue there, that's something you have no control over. So yeah, definitely your personal practice should be private. Your deities should be private. I mean, to an extent that's appropriate to your family. But, yeah, so, so I agree with you that your personal things should be private. Okay, guys, so now I talked really fast and gave you tons of sort of material. I did try to base it on one graduated path, then your understanding of reality, that we are in a universal ocean of interdependence and such. And on the basis of that, then the nature of your mind, which is I used my example of my hand and such. And that when you get into Anantara Yoga, you are introduced to your most subtle nature, your clear light nature, which is like at the base of your hand. And then in the Anantara Yoga, how does it work? Well, then from there, which is your personal liberation, you manifest for the benefit of sentient beings. Okay, so then we covered those things. And then we covered having manifest. I gave you the example of we're in the playground of enlightenment. Our game is enlightenment, and all sentient beings are on the same team. So those are just some of a review of the things that I actually did talk about. Okay.
Sorry, but I have one more question.
Yes.
It just came into my mind. And after highest yoga tantric initiation, it is recommended or also a commitment when somebody goes to sleep to practice the death meditation. So the stages of that.
Each deity is a little different, but generally speaking, yes, your answer is correct. That you should do death, bardo, rebirth with Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya when you go to sleep at night. When you wake up, then you manifest out of the Dharmakaya. Yeah, that's all part of the individual sadhanas. So each sadhana has a particular technique to do it. Heruka has a particular style. Vajrayogini has a different one. Yamantaka has a different one again. They're all similar, but they're all a little different. Depends on the deity.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. So the next class we'll do will be the Mahamudra. It'll be in April. And in that, then I want to do a very simple review of the 4 schools of Buddhist philosophy. But it's interesting. I think it'd be non-philosophical, but very practical. I enjoy that particular subject. And then we'll talk about Mahamudra from a sutra point of view. And I'll touch on a little bit of how it would differ if you're in a tantric practitioner. Okay. So that's in April. I don't remember the date right now, but so that's something that will happen.
Yeah, I posted it in the chat. It's April 19.
Okay, good.
And I just posted the document. You sent it to me last Thursday. It's also in the chat, so people can already by now review it. So we are a little prepared. And thank you, Jhampa. That was, again, really informative, interesting, so much food for thought. And if you ever wish to come back, also after the Mahamudra, you're most welcome. And thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. Great questions. Nice to see you all. Tomorrow will be the Avalokitesvara, Sadhana, Italia. And on Sunday, we have the General Assembly at Laksam. Everyone's welcome. So lots of activity. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in. And I guess it's good night to you all. Whoa, the dedications. Here we go. Let's go. I prepared a little thing before we say finally goodbye.
Yeah, I'd like to do it in English so that we actually know what we're saying a little bit better. But so, due to this virtue, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception into the enlightened state. May the precious supreme bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that which has arisen not decline, but increase evermore. May the precious view of emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which is arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. The wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. In the land encircled by the snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the supreme ones, superior savior of myself and others, please, your disciples, please live long. Very good.
Thank you, Jhampa, again. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, everybody. Maybe see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sunday.
Thank you, Jhampa.
Jhampa.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Nicholas.
Ciao.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you, Lars.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thank you,
Thank
Lars.
you. Good evening, everybody.
Yes.
Good
Bye-bye.
evening.
Thank you, Jhampa.
Bye.
Hello, Monica.
Thank
Hello,
you,
Adela.
Lars. Thank you,
Thank
Jhampa.
you.
Thank you, Lars. Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.